America, I'm Lyle Rapacki, and this is Arizona Today. It's a special segment of Arizona Today, part two. So if you haven't seen part one, you're going to want to go back and take a look at that and then clue in for this because they go hand in hand. And especially the topic we're discussing is so heavy, you're going to want to, from the beginning, follow it. Now, I would suggest you get a Kleenex for this part also, if you haven't for the first part. What we're talking about is, I'm going to call it, and I've already written on this, is court tyranny. What we seem to have in the family court system in Arizona, but now we've learned it's in 6 other states also. A very, very similar situation where parents who have been through a divorce are now experiencing the trauma of custody issues. And the parents behind me in part one, segment one, have been talking about the cost, the financial, emotional cost, having their children not be exposed any further to the trauma of a divorce and the custody issues. The court does not seem to listen. And we have then professionals, so-called professionals who are intervention specialists, who they also don't appear to be listening. In fact, what you're going to hear in this part two, segment two, is some very daunting examples of where the specialists did not protect the child or children. This is rather, it's not just troubling, it's unnerving that you have a court system and professionals in healthcare that do not appear to be as concerned about the welfare of a child as the welfare of their pocketbooks. What you're hearing from parents and what has already been presented to the Arizona State Legislature in a joint special session are parents who have paid thousands upon multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, up to $2 and $5 million. You can go back to my website and take a look at the legislative sessions that I put on. They're all day, 7 hours, so you're going to want to sit down for that because you're going to see and hear actually a couple of the parents that are behind me who testified before the joint legislative hearing on the trauma that they've experienced financially and emotionally as they tried to make sense out of the custody issues that the court imposed and these interventionists imposed. We've learned in the last couple of months that the therapeutic interventionists, now these were behavioral health people, they were making recommendations. Actually, they were giving orders to the court, and the court would just follow the orders. They didn't check into it on their own. And many, many times, as you heard in segment one, the behavioral specialists weren't really concerned about the child's welfare. And when either the child or the non-custodial parent came to the behavioral therapist and reported, even evidentially, abuse, it was ignored and definitely not submitted to the courts. And so here in Arizona, and we've learned in 6 other states now, there's a very similar situation taking place where not only is the child having to deal with the trauma of a divorce, but now they're having to deal with the trauma of maintaining and getting through custody battles and even being placed in a resident of a parent who appears to be very abusive, but nobody's listening. So on this segment of Arizona Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We started on segment one, so go back and look at segment one, but now here on segment two, I really want to pick up on this topic. So thank you for joining me. We're here in Phoenix, and I've asked if some parents would come together who have experienced this firsthand, and that's what we have here. So again, you go back to segment one and you will see and listen to testimony. Now, Ms. Torrey, I'd like you to stand up for me. This young lady I just met today, but I've had the privilege of talking with her on the phone and reading some emails and also conferring with her mom, who's sitting right here. Her mom also testified, I think the first day, wasn't it? There was the first day of the hearings, the joint legislative hearings, they were 2 hours. And we had hundreds upon hundreds, I'm not making this up, hundreds upon hundreds of moms and dads who wanted to testify. So it went to an all-day hearing, and that didn't do the trick. We went to a second all-day hearing, and that didn't do the trick. Well, maybe it did a little bit, but hundreds have come forward, hundreds, to say you've got to hear my plight, my situation. Nobody's listening. And in the last so many weeks, besides the hundreds across Arizona, we now have legislators in 6 other states and parents who have reached out to Senator Fincham and Representative Kessel, the co-chairs of the joint legislative hearing, and said, we need to come and talk. We need to present evidence. Well, we've since learned that now other legislatures are about to, and today the Idaho legislature is holding their own hearing on the family court system. So this young lady, I just met for the first time, but I've talked to her on the phone and read her story. And what I want to share initially is that she went through, and you correct me, ma'am, she went through the whole custody issue, the problems with the divorce and the back and forth. But there's another dimension to this story. And I'm not really sure how I should even introduce it or share it, because what you went through is hellacious. What we've learned in the testimonies is that children, again, from 18 below, I'm going to say several, probably more than several were taken when they went to school, and they were put into vans not knowing anywhere where they were going. Their custodial parent, in this case a mom, had no idea where they were going, and they were transported out of state and sent to a re-education camp. And now I've learned that there's 2 names on it. It's re-education and reunification. When you get old, you forget sometimes. I was first taught and read that it was re-education, but it's re-education and reunification camps. And this young lady was bold and strong enough that when she reached the age of majority at 18, she came forward to tell her story. It's daunting. And so I asked, would she be all right if she came forward again and told you a story of what happened to her as she was taken to a re-education, reunification camp, and what that meant, but she had no idea. She had no idea she was going to anything like this. She had no idea where she was. And let me just kind of stop there so I don't give it away, Tori, and you take the floor now, okay? And
Do you want me to stand up?
say again?
Do you want me to stand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Victoria Nielsen, but everyone calls me Tori.
She's a good girl.
I'm 20 years old now, but me and my family have been going through this since I was about 7, so 2011. So it's been about 14-ish years. So yeah, it's been going on for a long time. Ever since I was a little girl, I never had a good relationship with my dad. He was not a good father, wasn't an involved father. He didn't make an effort, I guess, to be there for us. And my mom was always our caretaker. She was there every day with me until my brother was born, and then there with both of us every day. And so I have always been extremely close to her. I couldn't ask for a better mom. She's so supportive and amazing. But anyways, so yeah, so I was really close. I am really close to her. And so when my parents got divorced when I was about 7, that was really hard on me, because my whole world kind of flipped upside down in the way that, like, all of a sudden I had to go and live with my dad half of the time. And I didn't really know him in a sense very well. I didn't have a relationship with him. And so it was really hard from, one day to be with my mom every day, like when I woke up in the morning to when I went to bed at night. So all of a sudden I couldn't see her or even talk to her for days in a row. Um, and so I started to, I would say, resent my father from that point on. Every single time that we had exchanges, I would kick and scream and fight, and he would just rip me out of the car and throw me into his car. And so that was very traumatic and upsetting, of course. And so it was very hard for me to go through that. And I always looked after my little brother through all of that too. I still do to this day. He and I are very close. And he unfortunately is still going through this. This started when he was about 3 and he's now 16. And just to say really quick, he hasn't been with my mom for 4 years. For me, it was only 2, so it's been double. So I can't imagine how he's feeling, and he's very strong. But anyways, so my parents had 50-50 custody until I was about a freshman in high school. So that was about 2019. And throughout our entire case, we have had countless court-appointed therapists and counselors and psychologists, whatever you want to call them, trying to tell us that we need to have a relationship with our dad and to force it no matter what we said. And we did actually get listened to by one of the therapists, and our mom had full custody for about 2 years. And there at the end, we had supervised visits with my dad, and that wasn't the first time, actually. We had supervised visitation when my parents first got divorced as well, because my father actually went to jail for domestic violence, and I witnessed that. So that just adds to the story that, I have a reason not to like him, despite what all the therapists said. But, anyways, um, so yeah, so my mom had full custody for about 2 years, and that was amazing. I felt finally free. I thought that I wouldn't have to go back to my dad's ever again, but I unfortunately was wrong. Um, but I would say everything with the reunification camp started to turn, I guess, upside down when Julie Skakoon got put on our case. She is a counselor and she is terrible. I've never had a good session with her. Anything that she said to me was just seemed irrelevant and ridiculous. She didn't ever listen to my concerns. I reported things to her quite a bit and just told her how I felt and told her what went on with my dad and why I felt the way I did. And she called me a liar for reporting things to her. And she, just like every other therapist, tried to force me to have a relationship with my dad. And it's my understanding that she is the one who got everything going with saying that we need to go to a reunification camp. And so other people got on our case, such as Diana Vigil, and she contributed to it significantly as well. She said, I believe, that we needed to go to this camp. And another thing I want to say is that a lot of these professionals are making these decisions when they don't know the kids and especially not the family. They've never seen, frankly, either parent. I mean, when I was younger, I had sessions with my dad, but they don't really watch you interact with your parents, and then you tell them what's going on, but they don't listen to that. They just make a judgment, seemingly that's going to make them the most money. Um, and so they completely twisted everything on my mom and suddenly claimed that it was her fault that we didn't have a good relationship with our dad, even though there had been evidence and I had been saying my whole childhood I don't want to be with my dad for all the reasons I listed and everything. And then Stephanie Stromfors was appointed to our case as our best interest attorney. And just like the parents were saying earlier, it's never in the child's best interest. And so, anyway, she started demanding that we need to go to reunification camp. She's ultimately the one who, put it in place and I guess worked with the judge to get the order signed. And it all happened very quickly. We got taken on May 27th, 2021. And so I had just gotten out of school for the year as well as my brother. And my mom was ordered to bring us to the courthouse at that day at 8 a.m., I believe. And if she didn't, she would be held in contempt, fined, and jailed. And so she brought us that day down to the courthouse, and I didn't know what was going on at all, and I had no idea what was ahead of me. Um, but essentially, we went into the courthouse, and there were four people waiting for us that were the transporters. They're basically hired kidnappers. Um, and it was three big men and then one woman, and they just kind of surrounded us. They made us say goodbye quickly, didn't say what was happening, and Stephanie Stromforce, the attorney, was there as well. And they basically rushed my mom off. She had to leave, and then they basically took us downstairs right across the street in front of the courthouse on the side of the road, and basically took everything we owned. They took our phones, any money that we had, any personal belongings. Like, they patted us down, they searched us, they violated us. Um, they took everything from us. And so, as if it wasn't traumatic enough to just be taken away from my mom, and I had no idea how long I was going to be away from her, but then to be touched by all these strangers who I'd never met was a terrible experience, to say the least. So, then after they took everything, they essentially threw us in the back of this van and didn't really say much else to us. Um, and that started our journey to going to Building Family Bridges, the reunification camp in California. But they never told us where we were going, how long we would be there, that we were going with our dad. All they said was, you can't have any contact with your mom. If you do, she'll get in serious trouble. And they kept saying, if you have anything else, you need to give it to us. And so they were very intimidating and scary to be around, especially because they were strangers. Um, and anytime we went to the bathroom with these people, we couldn't even like latch the door shut. They stood right there in front of us. We were given no privacy. And honestly, we were treated like criminals for no reason. And so we eventually arrived in California, which we still didn't know. They never told us what state we were in, or that we were even going to a different state. But that whole car ride was extremely traumatic. Luckily, I had my brother, and we were just clinging on to each other and like just crying the whole way. It was terrible. But anyways, so we got there, and we ended up having to spend the night with these people in a hotel room. And so me and my brother were sleeping in a bed, like in the corner, right next to two of these people. And then there was like a connected room with the other two. And that night, as we were like laying in bed about to go to sleep, they started to barricade the door shut with like all of the furniture in the hotel room, like all the chairs and everything. And so that's what I saw as I was about to try to sleep is I'm trapped in this room in the corner, no matter what, with all of these adults who, if I try to fight or do anything, they're just going to pick me up probably and stop me from whatever I'm doing. So I was powerless. And that was like a specific moment that I was like really scared. Like, what is going on? What are these people doing? And why are they barricading us in this room when we've done nothing wrong? Um, and so the next morning, they essentially just said that we were going to have a meeting with our dad, and that was it. And so they drove us to a different hotel, and they brought us into like a conference room. And in there, my dad was waiting with his fiance, who had a history of being verbally abusive. Um, and I hadn't seen her since that there was an incident. Um, and then Randy Rand was in that room. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but he runs Building Family Bridges. Kamala Harris took his license away, but he has been practicing anyway and running these camps. And then there were two other, I don't know, counselors or whatever. I don't know what to call them, but they were in there and they also ran the camp. Um, and so basically, the transporters dropped us off there and just kind of left. And during this time also my brother had strep throat and he was denied his medication that my mom had provided the transporters. Both the transporters and my father denied him his medication, so he continued to be ill for another month after this occurred. So he was in, pain, physical pain, more so than me. But anyways, um, and so basically, this camp was 4 days long, 8 hours each day, and the court order told that we couldn't have any contact with our mom or anyone connected to her, related to her, for at least 90 days. And that was extremely crushing and surreal to hear because our entire family is on our mom's side. My dad only has one living relative in this entire country who we're not close with. So that basically meant that not only is my mom being ripped away from me, but everyone I like know and love in my family is. Um, and so I don't know. I can't even describe the experience. It's just I was in disbelief. I was in shock. I didn't know how to even react. But these counselors, the people running the camp, told us that if we tried to run or we didn't behave, that we were going to be sent to like another camp. I can't think of the name that they described it, but basically to clean up our act because we weren't cooperating. And so this entire camp's goal is to like rewire our brain and our thoughts to think that our mom is at fault and that she turned us against our dad and that our dad never hurt us in any way. And they have a rule called moratorium that you can't bring up anything from the past. So, no incidents or anything that may have given you reason not to like that parent. You're not allowed to speak about it. Um, and there's another rule called blackboard, which basically means that anything you say, you can just take it back like it was never said. And that's another tactic that they use to make you think that someone can just say something and it doesn't mean anything. And so, um, anyways, so the first 2 days of this camp consisted mainly of just watching like videos that were aimed to try to make us think a different way, to try to think that our dad was the victim in this situation and that our mom was at fault. And it was just crazy to watch. And I don't know. That's the word I would use is crazy. Um, and so then each night we would stay in a hotel room with our dad. And once again, like everything is taken from us. We don't even have access to the time. They take the hotel phone out of your room. And it even said, like on the hotel, like Board of Events, like Nielsen Family Bridges. And my dad and all of the was running the camp like sprinted up to the front desk and demanded that it be taken down. So they don't want anyone to know where we are or who we are, so that no one can help us. And so, and then the last 2 days of the camp were more so like interactive, I guess, like trying to force us to have like family meetings. And it's very forced and very structured, like nothing is natural about it. And so, yeah, so that's basically the gist of what happened at the camp. And so after that, we were forced to live with our dad and his fiance for, it was supposed to only be 90 days, but for me it turned into 2 years. And like I said, my brother, it's turned into 4. And so we weren't allowed to have contact with our mom at all, or the rest of our family. And I mean, I can go into more detail too if you'd like for the 2 years after, but
Hold off right there.
okay.
Thank you, Miss Tori. Any of you parents up here, first of all, let me ask tough questions. Do you find any of this ridiculous, not realistic, false, sensational? No? Yeah.
I see it right on.
Okay, all right. It wasn't a trick question. I'm just, is there anything that Miss Tori shared with you? And she was a minor. She's now 19, and she has come forward boldly, and she will be testifying before the Arizona legislature this month or the first of next in a little bit more detail, because enough's enough. And there's other kids who've been involved in this. Now, is there anything that Miss Tori has said to you as parents that you can relate to, that your children have gone through You can, okay. You get a microphone over there.
I've had the pleasure of speaking with Tori over the years. And what's ironic and not surprising is we have the same judge cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So the same judge who made that ruling also made the same ruling in several of our cases, including my four children, which Tori is aware of, giving the father of my children full custody overnight and giving me no pathway to have any contact with them with no accusation of abuse. So it's not surprising, and I know everything Tori is saying is valid. And I'm also aware that this continues even with her brother to the point where her mother is silenced, to where they're not able to discuss it. So it doesn't surprise me at all because I know firsthand we're all living that with that same judge cycle.
Okay. You had, yeah, we'll come down this way.
So, with the best interest attorney, you mentioned Stephanie Stromforce, and that name is synonymous with evil in the court systems. Most of us have had her, and her first instinct is to automatically reduce your parenting time. God forbid you file a complaint against her with the Bar Association. God forbid that you file a complaint with the board. I'm just kidding. It asked again. She had, was a full time parent, and I'd given me a note saying that my son lived with me. I was having troubles with her getting him into school. We went in to then Judge Kathleen Cooper, and she appointed Stephanie Stromforce. And Stephanie Stromforce instantly took me from being the full-time parent to weekends. And I filed a complaint with the Bar Association. And the next time we went into court, I was completely removed as a parent, but it was not in retaliation for filing a complaint with her against the bar, at the bar, which she did say in court, ironically. And that began a 2.5 year being on 4 hours of supervised visitations, mental evaluations, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
At that time, during that time, my son reported to his counselor, which I was fortunate enough to get him into counseling before the court appointed a counselor, so he got to stay where he was at. And despite years of him saying, I need more time with my dad, I miss my dad, and having issues and issues and issues, every time it went back into court, Stephanie Somfar said no.
Anyone else? Another parent?
Yes, so my son was medically abused despite the multiple documentation that was submitted into court via ex parte. I was still considered the abuser and the batterer in the eyes of the court and denied custody and visitation. So when Tori spoke about the continuous lies and just the made up, stories, falsification of documentation being submitted into court, it is absolutely true. And ultimately, it's not in the best interest of the child. It's the profit margins of these individuals that are court appointed that is in their best interest and not the children.
Now, Miss Tori, and correct me, okay, if I got this wrong. I've read so many different testimonies and reports, and no two are exactly the same, and they're all traumatic. But my understanding is that you were put into a van, you and your brother, and you had no idea where you were going. You were not told anything, and you were transported in this van for a period of time. And when you became aware of sort of where you were out of state. You were in California, it turned out. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
But you had no idea where you were going. No one told you anything.
No.
And then you were in this re-education, reintroduction camp. How long were you there?
We were there for, well, the camp specifically lasted 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And during that 4-day period, my understanding is you had no phone calls. You were not allowed any contact whatsoever.
No, no contact with the outside world at all.
And then when the 4-day period was over, you were transported back to Arizona.
Yeah,
Or was that with your dad then?
yeah, with our dad.
It was your dad. And you immediately went to his residence,
Yes.
and he immediately had custody of you and your brother.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fascinating that none of this had come up before the legislature started to investigate. And we've learned that the courts do not have the authority to move a child out of Maricopa County. It's illegal. And it's also illegal, and one of the very few things that Governor Hobbs did that was right, and you can quote me, she signed legislation forbidding a removal of a child to a re-education, introduction camp. It's not allowed. It's illegal. I guess the courts are above everybody. They do their own thing. So, and you're hearing examples of this also. Tori, your brother is still with your biological father.
Yes.
How's he doing? I know you get to visit him every now and then. You're in college and you're in Oregon, so, but you get to visit him.
Yeah.
Can you give us a report how he's doing? It's not a professional report.
I know.
It's okay. It's your opinion.
Yeah. Honestly, it breaks my heart to see him this way. It makes me quite upset all the time because he is just not himself. You know, sometimes when, like, I've been to a few of my mom's supervised visits, and he kind of will open up, and it's only 2 hours, so he doesn't have much time. But when we're all together again, we get a quick sense of normalcy, and we can kind of be our happy selves again. But when I talk to him on the phone, he's just, I don't know, he's so down. He doesn't have energy. He sleeps all day during the summer. And I know why that is. Being in that house, I know it's to avoid his reality. And he's not really involved in things like at school or extracurriculars, and that's something that I made sure that I did, is kind of medicine for myself. But my brother doesn't have the support that he needs to do those things, especially not without me there anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's a strong kid, but he is, I don't know. It's definitely, if you want to use the term, it's not in his best interest to be
Yeah.
there. So,
Well, will you remind him that we thought of him today?
yes, of course.
And we are, and let him know that we are thinking of him. It's not just something that's said glibly, that there is work going on to correct all of this. Thank you, Miss Tori. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, parents, my understanding, so here you go again, correct me if I'm wrong. I've done pretty well. I haven't gotten too many things wrong, have I? I've done pretty okay. My understanding is that if you were to visit your child, it had to be supervised.
Yes. Correct.
And you had to pay for the supervision.
Yes.
Okay. And the supervision maybe once a week or twice a week. Okay. And the supervision would be anywhere from $150 an hour to $350 from what I've read. So were you okay with that? 150 to 350. Yours could be 200, 220. But what I've read is 150 to 350, that range. And that would be for 2 hours and maybe twice a week. So somebody help me with my math. Thank you. 2,000 a month. See, when you have a doctorate, you know that you can count these things. So 2,000 a month for supervised visits with your child. Am I doing okay? And somebody's in that room with you during the supervision. So you really don't have the freedom to talk, to share, to laugh, to cry, to have your child or children share openly and candidly. Am I doing all right?
Yes.
Real quickly, I know what I'm saying. Please give me some latitude. I don't mean light of this, but real quickly, how's that impact you? Yeah, real quickly. I know because you're going to visit your son or daughter at 150 to 350 an hour, and you got somebody in there, and you only get to see them once a week. What's that do to you?
It was unbelievable and insane and just the most awful feeling in your soul I'm a parent who had sole legal and physical custody for 12 years and a renewed restraining order that my ex-husband violated repeatedly and committed a felony assault in 2021 caught on video. And because I reported that, they retaliated and flipped custody to the abuser, long documented abuser, and put me on monitored visitation. And I was told I was a parental alienator because I had published in articles that the judge and the minors council and the therapist were going to get in trouble and that our story would get out. I was specifically told that I was a parental alienator because I posted those things, and that's why they put me on monitored visitation. I was not allowed, my children and I were not allowed to leave the room. It was all they wanted to do was sit on the sofa and hold me after living with me and being in such fear of their father after he had chased us down a city block in broad daylight, attacking us so much that he gave me whiplash and 2 bulging discs in my neck and punched me and dropped me to the ground in front of my children. I kept going to the court and telling him I couldn't afford monitored visitation. I was on monitored visitation for 6 months. I turned in glowing monitored visitation reports that the judge didn't care about at all. I told him I was going to lose my home. He didn't care. I became homeless because I paid for monitored visitation as long as I could until I lost my home. And subsequently, I have not seen or heard from my kids in 2 years. This is happening all across the nation, all across the state of California, Arizona, Chicago, Florida, Texas, every state, because I became an investigative reporter and I know people are reaching out to me.
Yep. Any other parent, same thing. You had supervised visitation. Were you the custodial parent at one time? Okay.
Correct, yes.
And then you lost that.
Yes.
Lost is a legal term. You lost
Yes.
it or it was removed. And your ex had the child and you got
Correct.
to visit the child once a week, twice a week?
I was twice a week for 4 hours.
So 2 hours at a time.
Correct.
At how much per hour?
I believe it was $200.
$200 an hour, so
Correct.
$400
Yes.
a visit, $800 a week.
Yes. Yeah. And I did the best I could, just like Julie indicated, to pay for it. I lost my home as well. One of the things that was just so perplexing to me is that as an educator, as a teacher with 2 master's degrees, I was being supervised by someone without a college education. So my thought process is I went through the schooling, as a, teacher, school counselor, school principal, but yet I'm being supervised and being told that because I'm crying and my child is crying in my arms, that I'm the alienator. I'm the one influencing my child not to go with his stepfather. So again, I was the one to blame.
Okay, I'm confused. You're crying, please correct me, this is sensitive. You're crying because that's your son?
Yes,
It was your son and you're missing him.
correct.
And he's missing you and he's upset and everybody's upset.
Yes,
And so you end up crying together and hugging
Correct.
each other and reassuring each other.
yes.
And that turned into you being what?
I was when the report from the
Yeah.
supervisor went to the court. I was the alienator.
You were the
I was
alienator?
correct. I was the alienator. I was the one who the court deemed as unfit because I was basically alienating my son from spending time, originally, and this is why I was deemed as an unfit parent.
Holding your son.
Correct.
You're the mama.
Yeah. Although he was medically abused by
I-
my ex-husband, I was the one who was basically
Okay,
committing a crime.
I'm so sorry that I have to be so probing like that, but your mom.
Correct. It's a maternal bond that exists between a mother and a child, and any person who has, any type of
I think
education
any
is
of us
obvious.
guys, we would know that our moms. I mean, it's still mom today. She can still ground you, right? As a mom to a guy, every guy knows this. Okay,
And I just want to point out the irony of it. Had any of us, because I too was on supervised visitation, I was given 4 hours a month, 2 hours every other week, at $150 an hour by someone, Kristen Alki, who everyone up here is well acquainted with. But that's not my point. My point is the irony of it. If any of us had been charged with abuse, if Julie had been a child abuser, if she had strangled her son and stomped him out, she would be entitled to 8 hours a month of visitation that was supervised for free. no one up here was ever charged of any abuse of our children, and we were made to pay for visitation. So we were paid, we have to pay to see our children. There's no one on this panel, and I know pretty much everyone on here who was ever accused of any form of abuse of their
Okay,
children.
I'm probably gonna end up owing you a coffee and a bagel, because I'm gonna challenge you on purpose. I wanna make sure I'm clear, but also make sure people across the nation are hearing this. Hang in there, sit down, okay? Because if you had strangled your child and beat up on him and were mean and all that, you could still see him.
Absolutely. And for more time, for free. My ex-husband strangled my child. He's entitled.
Okay, so he gets to see
He
him.
would get 8 hours of supervised visitation for free.
Okay, but you did not, have you been charged?
I've been not even
Have you been
accused.
accused?
Never.
Has it been suggested?
Never.
Has there been any innuendo that you've abused your child?
Not at all. And not
Okay.
only that.
And so you ended up having to pay for 2 hours every 2 weeks. All right, go on, thank you. Someone else?
So after my first initial 2.5 years of being on supervised visitations, I got my son back, and it was the fall of 2019, just before Christmas, November, I think it was. And finally back to week on, week off. By February, my son was going back into Children's Hospital, where they discovered, because of suicidal ideations, he was diagnosed with chronic psychological abuse and was instantly reported to DCS. Because his mother took him, she got the chance to tell the therapist, the doctor there, that, oh, Dad had just been on supervised visitations for 2.5 years. It's all his fault. Now, mind you, if I'm on supervised visitations for 2.5 years, my every move under a microscope, how can I contribute to the chronic psychological abuse of my child? It is an impossibility.
Were there any reports during that 2.5 years submitted to the court of any suggestion of abuse by you or any suggestion of misbehavior on your part? Any?
Nothing on my part, no. There were documented proof of abuse at Mother's Care. And in fact, Stephanie Stromforce had sent someone unannounced to her house and found out everything I was saying was true, but still had me removed. And then DCS came back at me and removed me also, even though it was impossible for me to have contributed.
They removed you from all visitation thereafter?
And Mother, and put him in a group home. And then in that group home, he was sexually assaulted. Mother, the DCS case manager at the time, Amber Warfield, and A Broad Journey, which ran the group home, their manager of that group home, got together and conspired to not tell anybody of the crime. I did not find out about this crime until I got full custody of my son in 2023. Mother admitted in court that they decided not to tell anybody. Nothing's been done to Mother. There's no crimes that have been charged. Phoenix Police is investigating it.
Yeah.
But they can't find the group home. The group home's disappeared. Amber Warfield is not volunteering any information. Okay. And in fact, I don't even think DCS is cooperating with any investigation.
Okay.
I just wanted to point out just the complete lack of uniformity in the system, because there's all these good parents up here that were forced to be on supervised restriction. I tried so hard to get supervised restriction for my opposing party because my kids were not safe. Anyone that loved their children would never put them in a room with this man unsupervised. And I was punished for doing that. So just, it's totally like just, there's no uniformity whatsoever. And the sad reality is, for every parent that has a child in this system, childhood should be like a magical time. We have to wish away their childhood so we can get them to safety. We have to wish it away. And that is such a special, magical time in someone's life. And as a parent, that's a magical thing to be a parent. And you have to wish that away so you can get them to adulthood so that they can be safe. And that is so wrong.
Part of the reason why it's so easy for us to understand what's happening to each other's cases is, as some of the parents have mentioned, most of our cases intersect. Stephanie Stromfers was the court-appointed best interest attorney who also stole my child. And in fact, it was during a temporary orders hearing, which is often kind of part of their playbook. And what she didn't know is that I had a sister and brother-in-law that were outside of the courtroom in the hallway overhearing her threaten my attorney at the time, if you don't give father full custody today, I'm going to put your child in foster care. Yeah. And so
Wait a minute. Yeah, let's back it up. You're fine. Back it up. Say that again to us.
during a temporary orders hearing
Yeah.
that was called in order to protect my son due to abuse allegations, my attorney and the court-appointed best interest attorney, Stephanie Stromfers, were conferring outside the courtroom, and they didn't realize that I had family members listening to them. And they overheard her threaten my attorney and tell my attorney, if you do not give father full custody today, we will take this child from both parents and put him in foster care.
There
Yeah.
have been reports. There's been testimony also. There's been reports, and there's testimony. Again, go back to the two all-day hearings in the legislature, but there's reports and testimony that the intervention specialists made, I'll say recommendations. I remember reading some things and they weren't recommendations, but in my opinion, but made recommendations that the court just went along with. There were no questions. It's almost like they turn 10 pages and look at the last page and it says recommend removal of custody from mom, dad, whatever. Boom, done. Is that, you all, okay. Same with reports being submitted to the court arbitrarily by the intervention specialist, not even in the best welfare of the child, it doesn't appear. In other words, if the child is experiencing some form of emotional trauma that can be documented, that does not appear from what I've read to have been taken into consideration.
No,
Do I have that wrong?
you have it correct. It's the exact opposite. So anytime there is harm or damage or any sort of bad situation for the child, that is what they're going to push the child into. It's a whole scheme. It's a racketeering
But they're in
scheme.
the best interest of the child.
It doesn't matter because they don't have any oversight. They're run amok. These court appointees have quasi judicial immunity, and so they are in a protected area where the laws can't touch them, and they are running absolutely wild. It's not concealed. There's nothing tricky about it. It's there, just open on its face, and that's why it's so shocking for us parents because we're thinking like we live in America. This is a democracy. Like we have freedom of speech, and then you go to these hearings, and it's just devastating to your mind because you cannot believe what is happening. And we're talking children being put in fatal situations. Children are not just being, emotionally disrupted or kicked around. They're being murdered.
So the best interest of the children, the best interest of the child, what I'm hearing you say, has not become forefront, has not become the most important thing for the court to adjudicate.
It's the opposite.
Right.
It's the opposite. And I want to be very clear because I think we've all spoke about these terrible encounters we've had when there are isolated incidents where there are providers who give the best interest, for example, Stephanie Preciado was a best interest attorney assigned by the court in my case, and someone else is on this panel, and she recommended that the children not be with the father. She documented the abuse. Her recommendation was completely thrown out. Likewise, I had a visitation supervisor who wrote reports and said these children are being abused by their father. And she was questioned in the court. The father had the opportunity to question her. Her testimony was found to be credible and honest. He could not say anything to take her out. And at the end of it, the judge said, I don't believe her. And like her in the audience stated, if anybody reports abuse of these children, mother will never see these children again.
Have any of you experienced during your visitation where the child reaches out to you and just blurts out abuse or the problems with the other parent, and just comes out with it? It's almost like who said they were holding the child, that somebody was and you got accused of, okay. But the child could be 16, but the child is just blurting out the abuse that they think is abuse going on with that parent. The supervisor, has any of that ever shown up in court? Does the supervisor who's supervising you, by the way, they hear this because you're in the same room. Do they ever report any of this? Yes?
So, not in my case. It usually falls on deaf ears. Again, I had Kristen Alcott,
Okay.
who, like most other people that I'd had, just ignored whatever it was. There are, however, a couple people that do supervise visitations that I found that will actually don't work for me. They don't work for you. They don't work for the state. They work for your child. And the one company, I don't know if I can say their name or not, but they were very upfront when I hired them after Kristen Alcott. And in fact, they replaced her doing my supervised visitations. And within 6 months, my visitations were done. There was no more issues. When there was an issue, they addressed it.
Okay.
They were very detailed in their reports about what happened and concerning the other parent.
All right. So any other parent? Go ahead. You got a microphone down here. What do you have to share?
Being a pro per with a group of people that are on it, one of the things that's very important, you point out, is there's good and bad out there, but you don't know. It's an unregulated industry. It's unregulated. You don't know who's going to do what to you. I know for a fact, and I'll share with Dave, we're talking about Weinstock and what he's like. People that are psychologists have been there a long, long time that take advantage of the systems and what's happening, and you just don't know what you're going to get assigned to. And it takes a while to investigate to find them after the fact that you hear this. So comments, maybe, Dave, you want to mention anything about how we've been run into that situation?
Give it to Julie.
So let me be clear. My case probably is on the softer side of other folks on the panel. I did not have supervised visitation. I didn't have to deal with some of the real tragedies that we've heard today, mainly because I absolutely refused to be victimized by the court system. I took the bull by the horns, and I decided I was going to fight for my son, and there was nobody that was going to ever knock me down from that goal and objective. However, during the course of a 6.5-year court battle with my child's mother, the Dr. Weinstock was assigned to my case as a court-appointed advisor. And one of the things that was probably most difficult with respect to co-parenting, which would have been a lot simpler if we had not had all of these crackpots involved in the case, was that my son suffered from a severe case of asthma. I spent many nights in the hospital while he was undergoing treatment for his asthmatic condition. It was devastating, dealing with that. but I did it, you know, happily and dutifully because he was my boy. And I wanted him to be well. I wanted him to be healthy, and I didn't want to see him suffering like I knew he was. There are complications with being in a co-parenting situation under the best of all possible circumstances. But, you know, you got so much distortion, so much noise from the court system and the various appointed crackpots that you can't deal with things, you know, that are rather mundane and normal for intact families. My son's asthma medication, you go and you get a 30-day supply from the pharmacy, and then, you know, the asthma medication, the emergency inhaler is at mom's house and child's at dad's house having an asthma attack. What do? Those sorts of things that are really, you know, just everyday occurrences you can't handle in a contested custody dispute. So, you know, this was something that we had to deal with. Dr. Weinstock in particular called me and mom in, and mom was alleging that I was not giving my son his asthma medication, which couldn't be further from the truth. So I pointed out to him, I said, look, I have lengthy communication with mom regarding the asthma medication and making sure that it travels with my son so that we both have access to it in the case that there is an urgent need to treat the child for his asthma. And he says, well, yeah, but mom says you're not giving him his medication. I said, that's preposterous, and we're not going there. And he said, well, prove to me that you are. And I grabbed an empty container of his medication, and I slammed it on the table, and I said, look, you son of a bitch, I'm going to be very specific with you that I am giving him all the medication that he needs. His health is the most important thing in the world to me. You cannot allege that I'm not doing what's in his best interest. This meeting, as far as I'm concerned, is over. Well, Dr. Weinstock turned around and he says, okay, we're going to have an attorney's conference, and you better be on it, sir. And so a few days later, I get a call from his office coordinating the conference with counsel. I was self-represented. I'm on line with with mom's attorney and Dr. Weinstock, and the gentleman says, Dr. Weinstock says to me, he says, I've done some investigation of your child's therapist. He says, and what I've decided is that unless, sir, you're going to agree to follow my rules to the letter, I'm going to have your child's therapist removed from his treatment. And I lost it right then and there, and I said, you know what, sir? I've got you red-handed. You've just committed a crime. He says, what are you talking about? I said, I've recorded the entire conversation. And he says, well, you can't do that. And I said, show me where in the law it says I can't do that. I have every right to do that. He says, this conversation's over. Click.
Okay.
And it hangs up.
Okay, Julie?
In my case, when things turned, was because I reported abuse, strangulation. My ex-husband escalated his abuse tactics towards the children, and when I started reporting that, because we all know the statistics with regards to strangulation, they appointed a minors counsel, and Nicole Schmidt then followed Tracy Willis, and now Takim Koram. And the first two threatened to put my children in foster care if there were any more reports of abuse by anybody. And up to this point, the reports of abuse to CPS had been made by the school principal, the school psychologist, pediatricians, and other mandated reporters, but they blamed me for it. And Tracy Willis's first appearance, September 10th of 2021, she threatened to put my children in foster care and that the judge should make an order that I and no one else could make a phone call to CPS or police to report abuse. This actually happened and was said. And this isn't isolated to just my case. This is what I experienced, which propelled me to become an investigative reporter to tell all of your stories, because they're slightly different here and there, they're all about the same. They're horrific. And this is happening, and it's happening rampantly. And later on, when they managed to facilitate all these illegal orders so devoid of law, and put me on monitored visitation. And I even jumped through those hoops of paying for the monitored visitation, which was thousands of dollars. And I submitted those visitation reports, more than 14, where my kids were begging to come back home. We got lucky with this monitored visitation provider, begging to come home, reporting of ongoing abuse at their dad's house. The judge didn't care. And at that point is when he brought in Jessica Sinclair, who I did a 6-part series on, who was committing fraud and lying about having a PhD for over 15 years and routinely putting children with abusers.
What you've been listening to are people who are experiencing, and not theoretical, what's become known as judicial tyranny, at least here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. It has now spread to other states, as you've also heard. We can go on. The 2 all-day hearings at the legislature were not sufficient. I believe the last all-day hearing, 7 hours, they finished and there were still 35 ballots, submittals to testify. There are hundreds, it's not made up, hundreds of parents across Arizona and other states that are screaming to be heard. I pray that these 2 segments of Arizona Today have opened some doorways, have pulled back the blinds a little bit. I don't know what state you're in watching this now. I know that when I post Arizona Today, it goes out nationally. It goes on a number of platforms. I get emails from all over the nation and 2 countries, 3 countries. It's rather daunting listening to this. These are people right here behind me who were very brave to come forward, and you are, and to speak to Georgia, New Jersey, Idaho, Wisconsin, Texas, California, Florida. They're very brave to speak to fellow Arizonans, much less people from across the country. And yet, correct me, here we go, if I'm wrong, what I know several of you have called me, written me, said to me is, Dr. Lau, we're just very grateful that somebody's listening. Okay. I don't want to speak for them, but I've had the same thing with emails. Dozens of emails. I really pray that you really listen to what these folks have had to say in both segment 1 and segment 2. I pray you go back and watch the 2 all-day hearings of the Joint Legislative Panel in Arizona. If you've been subjected to anything close to this, please contact Senator Mark Fincham at the Arizona State Capitol or Representative Rachel Kessel at the Arizona State Capitol. I keep saying that, and I still get emails and phone calls. I kid them in a way. I don't have the staffs that they have, and they're inundated. Don't let this go by. Don't sit on this. I am telling you in front of everyone I can tell that Arizona is not sitting back going, well, this was kind of fun. Okay, now what do we do? Or let's have another legislative hearing because we're bored. That is not happening. We had this special segment, 2 parts, because I wanted to share with you nationally what's taking place in Arizona, because we've already heard from 6 other states and some others that are starting to make contact. And they're having the same problem. Something's desperately, terribly wrong. Arizona, once again, is fortunate, or whatever you may say, leading the way. I can speak unofficially for the senator and for the representative. They're not going to let this go. They're not going to sit back. They're not going to have another hearing because they're bored. Work has already begun to not only investigate what you've heard and more, but to address it and not just Band-Aid over it. If you're having a problem similar to this in your state and you're watching, contact your legislators. Find one in your legislature that will be open to really investigating this, and then have that legislator contact Representative Rachel Kessel or Senator Mark Fincham in Arizona. There will be help for them. There will be contact made. I want to thank the folks behind me and even some folks right here in front that you didn't get to see. I'm looking at their shiny faces and their eyes. Some of them had tears in them because they've gone through much similar situations. There was not the time. Maybe, possibly, and I'm just saying possibly, maybe. I don't want to get an email saying, well, Dr. Lau, you said possibly, maybe. It's on record. Maybe, possibly, with enough parents, we can do something similar to this, again, to get the stories out. This is not just a trip. This is not just fun. This is not just because we're bored and it's summer. Work is being done. I promise you, work is being done, and you will see the work that's already begun. There's a very, very serious problem in the Arizona court system, but it also appears that it has migrated to several other states. It's not going to just go away, and it's not going to be swept under the rug. I hope you've learned something, and if this has touched you in some way because you're going through it or a friend of yours is, please reach out. Don't just sit back. I'm Lyle Rapaki, and that's how I see things from Arizona today.